I would like to just take a moment to introduce our speaker today. Bob Barron is a recognized expert on eagles. He's been observing and photographing the eagles around Lake Hopatcong since 2014, but he was introduced to fishing on Lake Hopatcong as a young boy at 14 by his grandfather. Bob is currently featured in the cover story of the Lake Hopatcong News, July 4th edition, available at local businesses now around the lake. Bob also gives eagle presentations on the Miss Lotta cruise boat, where he raffles off one of his eagle photos during the cruise and generously donates the proceeds of that raffle to the Lake Hopatcong Foundation. Thank you, Bob, for your support and for sharing your time, passion, and knowledge today with us. If you just give me one moment, I'm just going to get Bob set up in the other room, and then we'll begin his presentation. Thank you.
I am Bob Barron, and welcome everyone who's watching this, and hopefully you have a little patience with that. We should get through this in 30 minutes. Normally my presentations will take 2 hours with a break in the middle, and we raffle off canvas prints of eagles. Anyway, we're going to get started. I've been doing the eagles, and by the way, let me just preface this. When I say eagles, I am strictly talking today, unless otherwise mentioned, about bald eagles. So it just kind of keeps the time limit down. All right, let's start off with, now this is not working. Okay, great. It's not allowing me to shift. Donna, help. It's not allowing me to move the presentation forward here. I can't move the presentation.
Just do this.
Okay, but.
Click on the mouse. Just use
What are
this
you
mouse.
doing? Oh, wait, okay, now this is working.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait, now you're at a slideshow.
Well, let me just start it from here. Okay. Okay. All right. We do have some good photography in here today, but you know, it's compact because we're going to learn about eagles. So we're going to start off with some eagle facts. And the question is, did you know that eagles mate for life? Kind of like unlike other animals, including humans, there's no divorce allowed with eagles. No. Oops. Oh, come on. This is killing me here. Bear with me. Okay. When they say we do, they do pretty much forever. But the what if is, what happens if something goes awry? One of them flies in front of a train, a bus, a car, it happens, or into a windmill. That happens as well. Well, the survivor will find another mate. They will look for and find another mate. But that in itself can be a problem, because in many cases, eagles will find a mate pretty close to their own age. In other words, when they come into maturity, which is during the 5th year of their life, if they make it that long, they will be pretty close to the same age. One might be 2 years older, or 3 or 4, or even 10. But one of them will supersede the other eventually. We're going to talk about the nest. It's also called an eyrie. An eyrie is essentially a nest, this is crazy here, is a nest made out of sticks. And you can see this one from 2016. It was kind of a mess. And Mom is not looking too happy sitting in there going, you know, he built this nest. I didn't have any say-so, and he took shortcuts, and it's a mess. So the following year, notice the difference. You know, she's looking around going, yeah, my design, it's a heck of a lot better. So look at this, sloppy, very, very neat, and it's a lot of sticks. Nests, eagles' nests are running somewhere between 6 feet in diameter and somewhere up to 3 feet in depth. In 2017, it was horrendous for the eagles because of the construction near their tree. And that was a condo complex, Mariners Point, down at next to the state park, or sort of just a little bit north of it. So they moved, pardon me, moved to Landing. and built this really crummy nest. The problem with this tree was it was a very tall tree. You can see the nest up top there. It was at the base of a steep hill. I was backed up against private property and then the lake. So in order to photograph anything up in that area in the nest, I had to add 2 feet extensions to my tripod. And by doing that, I was able to not have to basically lay in the middle of the road or the edge of the road in order to get a picture. But I'm still getting photographs of underside of the nest because of the steep angle. Whereas if you go back to this one, I was about 1,200 feet away with my camera, which is 850 millimeters. So I could kind of get right into the nest or on top of it pretty closely to see what was going on. So 2019 was the same thing, but it got worse because both years, as soon as the leaves came out in the springtime, I could not see a thing. And most of the coverage was not just the leaves around the trees that were up tall there, up top. It was the brush and everything going up that steep hill. So you won't see too many photographs of the nests in those 2 years. But look at 2020. They must have hired a contractor for this because their original nest had fallen down during a storm during that 2-year period, and they rebuilt it. And it's as level as you could possibly imagine. You could see that stick, that actually it's a small log on the right-hand side where the branch on top, where the branch kind of goes off into a fork there. That's about a 3-inch branch. So you can imagine, and it goes, by the looks of it, it goes about 3 to 4 feet. So they would be carrying that, not in their mouth, although they do smaller ones that way, but with their talons, as if it was a long skinny trout. I threw this picture in. This picture, I've photographed eagles in Alaska and in Florida mostly. But Alaska, this was an interesting trip. I was on a boat. It was raining, it was foggy, the boat was moving, and it was kind of enclosed. So I had to shoot through a plexiglass window in order to get this. This is known as the world's largest and oldest bald eagle nest. And it's not just Alaska. This is, for the entire North America. And by the way, that's the only place you'll find bald eagles is in North America, from the Arctic Circle all the way down to the Yucatan Peninsula. So there is, every state in the United States, with the exception of one, has bald eagles nests somewhere near lakes, water of any kind, oceans, and of course, rivers, small ponds. As long as they can pull fish out of it for their primary diet, they're happy because they're actually sort of an aquatic type of bird. But this is 100 years old, more than 100 years old now, because I took this maybe about, I don't know, 15 years ago perhaps. And people say, well, eagles don't live that long. No, they don't. But nests become abandoned, just like they abandoned their nest for 2 years here on the lake. In Alaska, this is right on the Pacific inland waterway, but it's still the Pacific Ocean. And these birds abandon it. Another pair will gather up, mate finally, and they will use this nest. Okay, some specifications about bald eagles. Males are much smaller than females. You can see the numbers here, 28 to 34 inches tall. That's still almost 3 feet tall. And the females are larger and heavier. And the reason for that is females are the stronger of the pair, primarily because she is the one that defends the nest, protects the eggs, and also protects, the chicks. When she has to get off the nest to do her, eating, she can preen herself, bathes, and defecates. Eagles, even the young ones, do not defecate in the nest. They learn immediately, or it's instinctive, I don't know, but they learn immediately to hang over the edge and fire it down to the ground. So my warning to you folks is never stand under an eagle's nest, never. Otherwise, you may just be hit by a couple of missiles. Wingspans, 6 feet for males, 6.5 to 7.5 for females because they are so much larger. And the record for wingspan was 9.1 feet. They found a female, and I'm not sure where it was, but you know, that's the information that I had read with regard to the largest wingspan of a bald eagle. Okay, this is an adolescent, probably about 2 years old. Let me just get a next shot of it a little better. Between 2 and 3 somewhere, and this I shot in Alaska. If you notice, the tail feathers are starting to get a little white. The beak is getting more yellow. It's about 3/4 of the way yellow, as opposed to black when they're small and babies. And the eye is starting to turn a little orange. I can sort of see it in the picture. I'm not sure if you can, but they have yellow eyes, yellow beaks, yellow feet, of course, white heads, and white tails. And by the way, that white head is what names them a bald eagle. Well, does that mean they don't have any hair up there? Well, they don't. They have feathers. But look at my hair. I am totally bald in that fashion because back in the day, not necessarily our founding fathers, but prior to that, the early settlers would call anybody with white hair bald. So that was the term for not having no hair. It was the term for white hair. So that's where the eagles got named. Natural enemies, the owl will eat their chicks just after they're born. The raccoon will eat the eggs. Raccoons can climb trees. Owls rather are predators, and they hunt at night. Eagles they're not a nocturnal animal. They do not fly away or stay anywhere out of the nest at night. They're guarding the eggs, guarding the nest so they can fight it off. And going back to the male, by the way, he's smaller because he's more agile and better for hunting, especially if he's hunting through small areas where he's got to skim down on the ground and pick up a rodent or what have you, something small. He can get through that. So, and then of course you got man who eats up the habitat, and that's one of the reasons why eagles started to dissipate many, many years ago to eventually be, put on as an endangered species. So they are no longer endangered. They are no longer encumbered in any way as a species, but they are a protected bird because they are a national symbol. So this is actually one of the guys who was standing on the roof, looking around, and all of the racket and the noise, it sounded like a gunfight from nail guns going off, backup alerts from, trucks dumping cement or just backing up for some reason, saws screaming, cutting plywood. And that's why they moved, in the first place in the 2017-18 season. Okay, life expectancy. The first year is terrible. About 75% do not make it past the first year. If it's a rough winter, and if they hadn't migrated, and migration is an instinctive thing, but mostly for the ones that have made it, they've kind of learned that through, gosh, there's nothing to eat in this frozen lake. And there's no animals that are running around the surface of the snow, primarily because they hibernate, a lot of the rodents, etc. So yeah, there could be a couple of birds on the ice that they will eat. Seagulls sometimes don't migrate out either. And Canadian geese seem to hang around pretty much forever as well. So the eagles here have survived, but the last few winters have been fairly mild. 2 to 4 years, there's another 50% survival rate. So half of what survives in the beginning, which is about 1 in 20, I think it's 1 in 23, something like that, is what pretty much is going to survive. And 50% of those during the next few years up to age 4, don't make it for other reasons. They're still learning. But each year they get stronger and stronger until the 5th year. At that point, they're considered adults. They can look for a mate, and their survival rate is 90%. Eagles can live 20 to 40 years in the wild, the ones that make it. And obviously they're savvy, they know what they're doing, they know where to find the food. They get out of territories for the winter if it's really, really bad. They'll actually head in this area, some of them, like upstate New York, say for example, they'll head to Massachusetts or to some of the Canadian shorelines. Why do you say, well, shorelines, yeah, it's cold up there, very cold, but the water doesn't usually freeze and they still have food. In captivity, they can live 50 years. And you say, well, why? Well, they were in captivity because they were injured in one way, shape, or fashion. And they could not be released back because they would never fly again. They would starve to death. So in captivity, they lived 50 years because of 3 square and Medicare. All free. Pardon my pun here. Bald eagles are very talented. And here is some of their talents. Now, they have 4 feet. They have these 1.5 to 2 inch, depending upon the size of the bird, whether it be a female, male, or an adolescent. This is an adolescent. This bird was probably born maybe 5 months ago when I took its picture. It's got the 4 toes. You could see 3 of them. The one that's in the rear to the right is embedded into the tree, or around the tree, I should say, holding on. And it was kind of funny because I named this eagle Daisy. And in the photograph, she had her paw out like this, her talons out like this, and looking at her toenails. And the first thing I thought was she was thinking, I wonder if they'd look good in pink. But 400 pounds of pressure that she at this age can still grab with is something to be, reckoned with. Some of the adult eagles, the larger ones, have been tested or measured, if they're in captivity, to up to 600 pounds PSI. So when they grab a hold of a fish, it sinks into, or whatever, it sinks into the flesh. They're not going to escape it, because if you notice, all of those talons curl around like that. Now look at the size of the talon compared to a human's hand. Granted, the hand is behind the talon, so the talon may look a little bigger, but let me tell you, it is the size of an average man's hand. And you can see the 4th talon here is kind of like, if you look at the upper right hand talon, and just down beneath it where it curls, behind it is that other talon, and it curls in as well. So nothing is getting away from this. If it's too heavy for them to fly with it, they'll take a 3 to 5 pound fish. But let's say it's an 8 pound fish that they grabbed and they're not letting it go. And I don't blame them, because now they got a lot for the family. And what they'll do is, I can't fly with this thing, so they will swim it to shore. Yes, they swim. This is the most fascinating thing about eagles. Eagle eyes. That's a kind of a saying for people who's got sharp eyes. So I put together this little demo here with a bunch of numbers. 4 to 8 is the 4 is, I'm sorry, is 8 is 4. 8 is the 20/20 vision, 8 times better a human's 20/20 vision. Okay, so somewhere between 4 to 8 is what their vision is. Now, why is that? Well, we'll get to that in a second, but the 50 is one of the most interesting things, and it kind of makes me chuckle all the time because I don't know the answer and nobody does. Their eyesight is so great that on a clear day, flying 600 to 1,000 feet, above the surface of the earth, they can look to one side or the other and see another eagle and know it's an eagle 50 miles away. It's like impossible, but no, it is possible, 50 miles away. Interestingly, though, if they are looking for a mate, they also know what the gender is. Now, the thing about bald eagles, I can look at a pair of bald eagles. I don't know which one is what gender. You can't tell. So they know somehow. It might be just some quirk, some way that they flip their wing or a feather twitch. I have no idea. But anyway, That's the cool thing. They have two sets of eyelids. That's the 2 and 2, but I'll get to the second 2 in a second. The first set is like ours. It blinks just the opposite of ours, though, from bottom to top. And they use it for the same thing that we do. Somebody throws something towards us, we're going to close our eyes and put our hands up. Well, they don't have hands, but they will close their eyes. They close their eyes to sleep because they are not a nocturnal bird. In fact, their vision is worse than ours at night. So we have, you know, more of a better eyesight in the dark than they do. So that's why they stay in their nest or their perch or wherever the heck they might be for that period of time. The other set of eyelids is actually a single blink. I call it zombie eye. And this one doesn't go from bottom to top. It goes from the beak towards the back. And every 3 to 5 seconds, they blink. And it's just the lubricant and a dust remover for the eyelid, which is what we normally do for our regular blinking. 270 is the number of degrees of vision. The other thing too on this, let me get to the second 2 first. There's 2 depressions called foveae. And it's rods and cones within the retina. And in that retina, there's 2 of each of those recessions in each eyeball. One of them sees straight ahead in each eyeball. The other one sees off to the right and or the left side on the opposite one. And they can see a full panoramic view as they're flying, and be able to, you know, all of a sudden at 270 degrees. So they could actually see behind them for a proportion. There's just a 90-degree triangle behind the center of their head that they can't see. Other than that, you know, they can turn their head and basically they have a 360. And the same just basically means that picture a 3-foot-tall bird standing next to a 6-foot-tall man, you know, big man. And the eyeball in the man is actually smaller than the eyeball in the eagle. Now you say, well, that doesn't look right. I mean, they got little tiny eyes. Yeah, but what you see here is kind of like a fingernail. You know, you can see your fingernail, but you can't see the part of it that's under the skin behind it. The shape of the eye is somewhat different too. It's like a box with rounded corners and a rounded back. And the rest of the sides tend to be a little square, and you got a little bubble in the front, which is where the pupil is. So that's the eagle eyes. What do they eat? Fish, fish, and fish, more fish. That's their primary diet. That's what they like. Will they eat rabbits, squirrels, chipmunks, rats, mice? Yes, of course. Here, they've been seen with a snake in their mouth. I know they'll eat frogs and turtles. This lake has called soft-shelled turtles, and they will take that and they'll pop the shell off the bottom, kind of like, you know, pulling a lid off a can, and they bring it up to the nest. If that doesn't work, if they can't get it off, they just take it in their talons, take it up a couple 100 feet and drop it on a rock. And then they bring this mess home in broken pieces, but they will eat it. They'll eat small birds. The only thing is with small birds is they can't catch them because the small birds are too fast and too agile. But if there's some birds in the nest and they're hungry, yeah, it's like getting you know, Tic Tacs out of a bottle. Ducks, geese, swans, turkey, they like swans on this lake. They always kill the babies down in you know, the landing area. They apparently don't like geese in this lake for whatever reason, because there's so many geese. It's crazy. They do like ducks as well. And turkeys, I was talking to an Oregon forest ranger. He was talking about how all the turkeys have vanished. I said, what happened to the turkeys? He goes, we got a pair of eagles here. And I guess, you know, every day is Thanksgiving for those guys. And they'll eat carrion. So this is what gets some of them through the winter. You know, so there's a roadkill, a whale washes up on a beach, a hunter shoots a deer, field dresses it. They'll eat the entrails, you know, if they can. And so, you know, they'll eat carrion, anything dead. And I always put the beware of small dogs and cats primarily because they can sweep down. Some of these areas here have a lot of lawns. All right, we're going to shuttle through some photos. Now this eagle, this is Mom, the female from the south end. And there's also eagles on Halsey Island, and there's a nest up on the ridge in Byram Cove where the cell tower is. And there's another nest somewhere in the woods between Whitport and the quarry up there. But this gal here, she's looking right at me, and I'm like 1,200 feet away, and she's got her head turned, and that's her back. Here's Mom and Dad in the nest. You see Mom looking down on the right there. She's looking down in the nest. Whenever you see a bird, especially an eagle, looking down in the nest, something's alive in there. So there's at least one bird that has hatched that we know of. You can't see it yet. Dad says, well, okay, let's get prepped. Let me go take a fly here, stop at the pub, talk to the guys, and I'll be back. And there he goes off. And then she's kind of here all by herself. It started to get a little windy. And I could just see she was not happy because look at her feathers in the back. They're all starting to, get all blown out of fashion here. And she was just had her hair done, so she's not happy. And again, they never look happy, never. Sometimes they look scared though, and I have a few of those pictures. I don't have them in this presentation, but you can read sometimes expressions on it. This was Dad on a limb. He's one of those guys that's always out on a limb, I think. Okay, when I'm looking through the camera lens, I can see, the nest, I can see but I'm looking through a viewfinder that's 3/8 of an inch tall, about a 1/2 inch wide, and then it goes through all of these glass things that come up to, a very close image. But I can't see it in that small of a screen. So what happens is when I get it home, I put it on the computer and I go, wait a minute, what's this little fuzzy thing down here? And it looks like it has an eyeball. Well, that was Huey, the first egg to hatch. And the eggs hatch every, they get laid, she lays the eggs every 2 to 5 days. So, if there's 3 of them, there could be a, pretty big difference. Could be, 15-day difference between the first eagle and the last one to hatch. And the last one to hatch has to fight for the food. So anyway, this was Huey. Now, here's Mom and Dad. As you can see, Dad up in the upper right-hand corner, that's his branch. He's out there kind of, just hanging around. So I watched this same scene for about an hour, and I shot a bunch of pictures, but nothing really moved, nothing. Until I went back to the camera after a while. I just took my eye away from it, and I hit the shutter. And what I got was, if you look at your bottom of your screen, that is Dad's top of his head. And you can see the V is his wings. If I would have shot this maybe a 1/2 second sooner, I would have got him looking like he's gonna come right in my face. So this is what I saw. That's what he saw. That's me with my bald eagle head. And you can see the reflection in the lens. This is kind of interesting here. The two of the guys here, there was 3 babies this particular year, but this is Huey and Dewey. And Huey said to Dewey, if Dad had ears, Mom would talk them off. And yeah, Dad's not very happy, and they're watching Mom and Dad sitting on this branch. Now take a look at Dad on the left. Now you can see the difference in size here too, by the way. It's a good example. Mom is much larger, and Dad is just keeping his mouth shut, and Mom is probably complaining about this year's nest, who knows. But anyway, she's talking, and he's kind of like trying not to pay too much attention. And I could just see what's going through his head as a typical guy, it's like, geez, get this, get that, go there, get back. She never shuts up. That's on the inside. But on the outside, it's always, we know, guys, yes, dear. So he kept his cool, and she kept on yapping, and he kept on thinking, blah, blah, yeah, squawk, squawk, and still going on. This was hysterical, I gotta tell you. I was laughing behind the camera because this is probably from a series of maybe 20 minutes. Here you go, still on, you know. Finally, she's still talking and he goes, that's it, I'm going fishing. Off he goes and she finally shut up. So she's looking around, but she's not gonna be defeated. She screams out to him, get perch, sunnies, trout, bass, maybe some frogs, and a squirrel or two, and a rabbit, duck, or even a swan, or, she gave up. Okay, these are from this year. There was 3 babies this year. This is just a nice shot. It's the 2 older ones. The 3rd one is actually in the scene, but it's kind of in the middle in between. You can just kind of see as part of his back. And mom is up in her lookout post up there, just keeping an eyeball out. And here's the 3 guys. Somebody must have came by and yelled, attention! And I don't know what they were looking at, but they really were just standing at attention, looking up at something in the tree. It wasn't Dad, which I thought it might be, because these guys are all just pre-fledging. And then fledging, of course, means they're gonna fly. And they are all fledged now. So I am at my time end right here. So we got questions. If anybody has got questions, we can do that. And if not, this guy is saying to me, you better, you don't want me to come down there. Any questions too that come up later on, that's my Eagle email. You can email me that, or if you see something unusual or a pair of eagles that didn't exist in that area, in a particular area before, you can let me know. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, just give me a second.
Okay, Donna's getting the question stuff ready.
So Bob, can you hear me? This is Holly.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Patricia asked, she wanted to know again where the nests on the lake were and also how many juveniles are around right now.
Well, there's 3 in the Mariners Point nest. There is at least 2 on Halsey Island, but see the problem on some of these other nests, they're not visible. The Halsey Island one is in a pine tree up at the very top. I had permission from Alice, who owns the property up top there, to try and photograph things. You can't. The only way you can photograph something is if they leave the nest and get on another perch for a lookout. But I have seen 2 adolescents this year on a pine tree that was just on the lake itself, you know, on the outskirts, standing pretty much on the same branch. So I know there's at least 2 on that nest. Okay, so that's 5. I don't know where the other nests are. I know their general location, which is up by the ridge where the cell tower is in Byram Cove, because you see them flying there, and they sometimes interfere with the territory of the Halsey Island eagles, because Halsey Island wants to go over to Byram Cove to fish, and that's not their territory technically. And the adolescents tend to get chased because they don't know yet. Same thing with where the nest is up in the wooded area between the lake at Woodport and the quarry. I don't know where they come from, but they tend to come down to Liffey Island. I was checking to see if anyone had ever seen a nest on Liffey Island. And no, there has never been a nest seen on Liffey Island. So I thought there might have been one, but I couldn't verify it. Now I've pretty much verified it with other people, you know, checking as well. And there is no nest there, so.
Bob, there's another question from Patricia asking if there's something that we can do to attract them out in our high oak trees.
You can hang fish there if you can get up at the top. But you know what they do? Now, what they do is their territory is usually as big as 6 square miles. And they usually don't go beyond that territory. And once they establish a mate, they build a nest, and wherever that nest is, they're not going to leave it, you know, unless there's a problem. In many cases, they will build a backup nest. So in this particular case, with the eagles from Mariners Point, they already have one, which is the one that they built for those 2 years. Now, whether or not it'll survive or be there when they need it, if they need it, let's say the tree falls down or the nest blows out in a hurricane. So, you know, they could always go back to that other nest until they reconstruct. But no, there's no way to attract an eagle. The only, you can attract them on the ground, but they're not going to stay. You know what I mean? If you have fish there, they will, or dead fish, they will come down and pick at it or take it.
We were asked to make an announcement that Mariners Point, where Bob is referring to, he knows someone there that he photographs, but Mariners Point is private property and there are no trespassing signs. So unless you're visiting someone there, please don't go on the property. Lee Moreau is thanking Bob for his dedication to these magnificent birds. If not for Bob, I would not have learned so much about eagles in general. Always a treat to spot them on the lake while on board the Miss Lotta and study hall. Someone is asking for Bob's email address again, and that will be, we'll put that when we share this webinar. We'll share Bob's email address again as well. Bob, you're also getting someone to, another thank you regarding your informative presentation. I have a question though, Bob, that I wanted to ask about the eagles.
Sure.
So with the three, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, is that what you coined them?
That was in 16. Yeah, the three now are Meanie, Miny, and Mo, the new ones.
Meanie, Miny, and Mo. So generally, when we get eaglets on the lake, there's 3 of them at a time. Has that been what you've seen?
No, there could be 1, 2, 3, or rarely, but occasionally 4. So they've had they've had 2s, and the 1 year, the 1 year they had only 1, and I firmly believe that they had additional eggs that might have frozen. I don't want to go into the whole story, but you know, somebody there was a I monitor, you know, the nest and report it back to the state, you know, now, but back then there was a monitor hired by the construction company for Mariners Point to keep an eye on the eagle's nest. And he said there was a really cold day, it was freezing, he was freezing, and the male was watching the eggs while the female was off hunting. And he left for some reason for, you know, about an hour. That could kill eggs. And so there was only 1 that year. Thanks to the people, Lee, and who said thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice to be recognized. Oh, and one other thing, what was that point? You had said something about, oh, never mind. It just totally slipped my mind. I got sidetracked.
Bob, we had a question if you can view the eagle's nest at Mariners Point. Can you still see it from the state park, or do you have to be in the lake to see it?
You cannot see it from the state park at all. And by the way, oh, I know what I was going to say. I don't go on the Mariners Point property at all. I mean, you can, but no, I have no permission to do that. It's private property. Okay. So I shoot from a public street. And I don't know if Lori Humans is on this webinar, but she pointed out to me, she was the one that actually showed me where these were. So that was great, you know, at the time. And I thank her for that, you know, right along. But no, I don't, I shoot from public property. So I park my car, and that's why I'm shooting from 1,200 feet, and that's why I have, you know, that camera lens that you see. That thing is almost the size of an eagle's nest, and it's heavy, and I'm getting tired of lugging it.
We have a comment from Kevin that we'd like to share in the chat. He's saying other places to see eagles. He gives a website, friendsofmontezuma.org/eagles. We also have another question from Manny. He's asking, do the baby eagles stay in the nest forever, or do they move on to establish another nest elsewhere?
Good question. Excellent question. What happens is about 90 days after they're hatched, they will fledge. So, or sometimes a little less. Males tend to fledge before females. I don't know why, probably because, I don't know, they're more agile and more interested in building muscle. You'll see them flapping in the nest until they build enough strength up to at least glide to a lower branch and then struggle to flap up to the top. Once they've fledged, now it's dad's job to show them how to hunt and where to find food. And mom will help with the task, but that's his principal thing. They will still, during that period of time, the parents will still bring food back to the nest and they will share it and eat. But after about another 4 weeks, 5 weeks of that, 4 to 5, they start weaning the babies off of feeding in the nest. And at that point, the babies want to steal food from the parents and they won't let them have it. So what happens there is that's one of the reasons why, that they cut them off so that they don't starve for the winter. And funny thing you should mention that, my wife and I went to lunch at the Windlass the other day, and from the Halsey Island group, I saw the male, he swooped down close to the opposite side where we were sitting, the island, and picked up a fairly large fish, circled around and was flying more or less towards Brady Bridge. And they kind of go, I think they go into the Venetian canals there. And behind them were two of the adolescents squawking in their feed me, feed me, feed me squawk. And dad was running away from him because he wasn't going to share that with them. So that was interesting. But then what happens is they are not allowed back in the nest, period. And they are not allowed in the territory. Eventually, they will get thrown out. Now, for example, there has been the last couple of years, mild winters, and I've seen adolescents early in January, February, and those aren't hatchlings from this year. They would be from the previous year, at least the previous year. So they didn't leave, and they still made it through the winter. But that's because the waters haven't frozen over solid. So to answer the question, no, they don't stay in the nest and they get thrown out of the territory.
Well, thank you for that answer. And I think that would answer the question that we had from John as well. We had a couple more comments, Bob, thanking you for the information, how much they love your enthusiasm for it. So I'm going to wrap up the question and answer period at this time and thank Bob so much for sharing his knowledge. So we'd like to thank all of you for joining. If you could all just join me in giving Bob a virtual round of applause, that would be great. Thank you all. Have a pleasant day.
Well, one last thing, my email, my email is simple. It's eaglepix with an X, guy, eaglepixguy at Proton, Proton, mail.
Thank you all very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.